Here, you're going to learn how to use the new filter function for Excel. It is an amazing function that allows you to return multiple results from a table with only a single function in a single cell. This is often referred to as a Vlookup that returns multiple results. That's not what this is, but conceptually speaking, it's similar in that it is a kind of lookup that will return multiple results. And to do this, we use the new filter function. And this is part of a course I have on teachexcel.com, so take a look at the description for this video and there will be a link to it there. Before we start, check the video description and click the link to Teach Excel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials. Alright, so let's take a closer look at what I've got here for the setup and then we'll get into it. This right here is just a very basic sample data set, hard-coded data, nothing special there. Later on in the tutorial, we will make an actual table, and I'll show you the benefit of that, but we're going to keep things simple for now with range references. And over here, I've got a few different examples. Now, let's go, first off, with the function we're going to use and the arguments that make it up. So we're going to perform a very basic filter here. And this is all you need to do. Equals filter, a couple range references, what you want to filter by, and then you get from this data set a filtered list that shows only the rows with the manufacturer Acme. And there are no other formulas anywhere here. The filter function is a dynamic array function for new versions of Excel, and it spills out into these other cells. And that's what allows it to fill multiple cells. There are no formulas here. And the beauty of this when we add a table down here is that it will automatically add any new data that matches the filter criteria when that's added to the original table. Alright, so let us now begin and perform the Acme filter. Equals filter. And there are only three arguments: array, include, and if empty. It looks pretty simple. So let's go ahead and fill out the first argument, array. This is the data that you would like to display. So here I want to display all four columns. In a moment we'll do it where you only display a single column. Now, comma, include, these are not very well named arguments. Include is your filter criteria. What do I want to filter this by? And the only requirement here for this argument, it's going to sound a little confusing right now, but I'll explain it later. The only requirement is a list of true and false values that is the same height as this array here. If you're going to make the array left to right, it would have to be the same width. But here we're filtering rows instead of columns, so it must be the same height. Now, what that means practically speaking is this. Sounds confusing, but practically speaking, all we do, select the range, and then do equals and Acme. And it is good practice if there's nothing that's going to be returned by the filter to go ahead and fill out the third argument. If empty is what you want to show someone if there are no results to return. So let's just write no results. Close it up, and there you go. That's it. And we have our filter. Now, when you do this on a live data set where you're going to be adding and removing data over here, you're not going to want to cram everything in here so close. I just did it to fit more examples in a small space, because this can spill down really far if you have a lot of data. So if you match a lot of filter criteria, then you could have a big list. Now, what is important here and what is tricky is this include argument. So I have a range set equal to some text. That's very similar to if you check a single cell for if it is equal to text. So if I go here and I just go equals, this equals Acme, then hit enter, I get a true value. Now let's copy it down. I'll get a bunch of trues and falses. I'll make it go up a little bit. There we go. So that is our filter criteria for this first example. So we get this one because there's Acme, we get this one, and so on. So that's how it works. Here, it looks a little bit more simple, a little bit easier to understand because we're dealing with a single cell. However, to put this in a nice, single, simple formula, you don't just reference one cell at a time, you reference the entire range against which you would like to check this value. And since we're dealing with a newer version of Excel, you do not have to do Control-Shift-Enter to input this as an array. Now let me go back here, and instead of doing this individually, let's pop in this right here. We're going to check the whole range against this. Now this is an array, but I can just hit enter and it will spill all of the values down, just like we did right there when we did individual cell references. And that is how the include argument works. So all you need to do to get this straight, to get this working, is have a list of true-false values that is the same height as the data that you would like to filter. And there's nothing wrong with building this little formula right here next to your original data set and making sure that you get everything right before you make your filter function. Get this right, then when you're done, just copy it, go over here, build your filter function, and paste it right in there. That's going to really help you avoid mistakes. Now we're going to deal with include a little bit more in a moment, where I'll show you how to perform an and an or filter, and then I'll give you another example of the true and false values like this. But now let's go to another example where we want to get to the manufacturer Acme, but we're going to return a different column. So this time the color equals filter. Now we select the data we'd like to return, which is color, then comma. For include, what do I want to do? Well, I want to go to manufacturer, and I want it to be equal to, you can look to the formula bar right now to see this filling in, equal to Acme. And no results, if there are no results. Enter, and there we go. White, vanilla, beige, and Dutch white. So here we have the filter function, and this is what I was talking about a moment ago when I said that the array here does not have to be the same as what you put here. These are not the same. They don't even touch. However, they are the same height. That is what matters. And remember those true-false values I showed you a moment ago? You can also evaluate those here in the formula. It'll work just like we did in the worksheet, except for it'll all be right here in one little array, just like that. So that's all that you need to actually get. And then the filter function will say, hey, if it's true, I'm going to show the row from here. If it's false, I'm not going to. All right, it is time for the AND filter. We're going to go down here, and we're going to show the Acme manufacturer with a size value of L for large. So we do equals, filter, and we would like to return all of these columns and whichever rows meet our criteria. Now we're going to do the include. And remember that you can build the include argument out here externally if you want to make sure you get everything right from the start. However, I know exactly what I want for the include argument, so I don't have to worry about it. Let us go with the very first criteria. Now I'm going to put these within parentheses down here, by the way. You will see why in a moment. First criteria, manufacturer Acme. Just like we already did. Okay. So we have one nice little check. It's going to be a bunch of true and false values. Now this is an AND filter. So I use the multiplication sign. I will explain why in a moment. Don't worry, relax. We do another open and closing parentheses. So think like math operators, where you put parentheses around the parts that you'd like to be executed before other parts, or you want to group these parts together. So we're going to create another group. That group is going to be size. And I want to make sure that size equals L. So we have our two checks We have them combined with a multiplication sign, the asterisk, and now we're going to do no results just in case, because otherwise you get a not very pleasant result if there are no results and you don't fill in the third argument. All right, so we should get Acme with size large. Hit enter, and there we go. So that's what it takes. Now we're going to do an OR filter, and then I'm going to explain how they work, because they work very similar. All we have to do is to change the multiplication sign to a plus sign. It seems really weird, I know, but you'll understand in a moment. So we want to do the same thing over here as we did for the AND filter, except for OR. So Acme or large. So we will start from scratch equals filter. We're going to go over here, select the entire table, and look to the formula bar so you can see the formula being filled in. So we do our open and closing parentheses. I like to do both first and then just sort of click right in the middle. Okay. Now we want manufacturer equals Acme. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the outside. This time we do a plus. Open and closing parentheses. Click in the middle. Size equals L. And we'll go to the outside. No results, just in case there are no results. Close it up. There is our formula right there. So the only difference between the AND and the OR is a plus or a multiplication. Hit enter. Go over here. And down a little bit. And we see that it is either Acme, or large. So let us look right now. You see this formula here. Just the plus sign is different from this right here with the multiplication sign. Now, why does that happen? Well, it goes back to what I explained a moment ago about true and false. So in order to use filter in a powerful way, you have to understand how true and false work. It's one of those things that is a building block for powerful formulas and functions, and this is a perfect example of that. So true is the same as the number 1, and false is the same as the number 0. Or, to be more precise, false is 0, and true will be anything that is above 0. So, let's go over here, and let's do our checks. We're going to do a very simple check like we did early on in the tutorial. B2 to B11, does it equal Acme? Remember that B2 to B11 is the manufacturer, there we go, manufacturer column right here. And the next column will be C2 to C11 for size. So we check if B2 to B11 equals Acme, and we're going to get a bunch of true-false values, as I previously showed you. And then we do the same thing for size, and we get a bunch of true-false values. So far, this is what we've learned. There's no problem. So what is up with the multiplication sign and the plus sign? Well, now let us do a little bit of math. For the AND check, we're going to multiply the left column by the right column. So each time it just multiplies the value in the same row. That's all. And you'll notice that we get 1 and then a bunch of zeros. So when you multiply true and false, the only time that you are going to get anything other than 0 is if both of them are true, because true equals 1, false equals 0. What is 1 times 1? 1. What is 1 times 0? 0. So true and false are numbers. True is 1, false is 0. When you multiply them together, you get a list of 1s and 0s. Then it works out so that, remember, 1 is true. You get 1 true value. That is the AND check. Both must be true in order to get a 1 over here. And here is our result. And what I've done here is used the AND function to check both of these and return the result. So it's another way that you can kind of verify that everything is working correctly. So these are just a bunch of AND functions right here. And you can see that 1 equals true, 0 equals false. So how do we do an OR check? Well, these are numbers. So if we do 0 plus 0, we get 0. If we do 1 plus 1, we get 2. If we do 1 plus 0, we get 1. So for the OR check, we are adding these together. And you see here, instead of 1, we get 2. Then 0, 0, 1, because there was 1 true here. 1, because there was a true here. And these zeros become false, and the positive values become true. And what we have here is just the OR function, and it works for these values over here. So it's the exact same setup as this, just using the OR function. This is something that is very easy to forget. The way that I like to remember it is by remembering that true is 1, false is 0. I'm not just going to immediately remember that, oh, if it's an OR, I have to use a plus. If it's an AND, I use a multiplication. No, I just think, okay, true is 1, false is 0. And if it's a 0, it's not going to return a result for me. And if it's a 1 or a higher number, it will return a result for me. So I just build the logic up from true and false until I get to the plus and the multiplication sign. It's something that's very, very easy to forget, and it just goes back to true and false, equaling 1 and 0 in the worksheet. That is as difficult as it is going to get for this tutorial. It can get a lot more difficult, but this is the foundation of that difficulty. So once you have a good grasp of the AND and the OR, the multiplication and the plus, you can build some massively complex filter functions. But let us leave it on a simpler note. What I want to do now is just to show you why you should use this on a table. So this is a table, right? But it's not formatted as a table capital T. And the reason that you want to use this kind of table is because when I add a value to this one, it will update the filter over here. The only reason I didn't do this for all of the examples is because in order to use tables, you have these structured references. They look a little bit goofy. I think it makes it a little bit more difficult to grasp a concept instead of seeing regular range references, which most of us are already comfortable with. So what I'm going to do right now is just remove the table formatting and make it a regular data set and then turn it back into a table and show you how that works. All right, we're back at a regular data set, no fancy formatting or features, so let's turn it into a table and put a filter on it. Just select anywhere in here and hit Control T or go to Insert, Table, and do put headers on your data, by the way. That will make life much easier. And then go make sure my table as headers has been checked, hit OK. And we get the lovely formatting. If you don't like this formatting, don't worry. Select the table, go to Table Design, Table Styles, choose this upper left option. See how it looks right now? Almost looks like there's nothing there. Then the last thing that you can do is to remove the filter button right here, and the little drop down arrows are gone. Then you'll have basically something that looks like a regular data set but has all the lovely features still with it. So now let us leave it like that and build our filter. And let's say I want to return all of this. Notice that when I select it now, it says table 1, not a range reference. That's the name of the table. And let's go and keep it simple. Let's just say manufacturer equals Acme. And if there's nothing, no results. Okay. So notice here it says table 1, the name of the table, and then MFR, the title for this column. So when I look here, I immediately know I'm dealing with the manufacturer's column. So once you understand structured references, it is actually a bit easier, and if you name your table something other than table 1, the default name, it's a bit easier to understand what's going on in your formulas. But when you're just starting out, it's probably not the best way to learn how to make an unfamiliar formula. So here we have the filter. Let's hit enter. Works just how it did before. Now let us go ahead and create a new value, ASC-13, and it is going to be Acme. Now watch over here. It should update the moment I input Acme. And there we go. Now let's fill in the rest of the values. Egg white. All right. How cool is that? So this stays the same. Nothing changes here. Table 1, MFR, nothing has changed, but it has added our new data down here. That's why tables are really so amazing combined with these dynamic array formulas that spill their results out into the worksheet like this. Now there is so much more that I can teach you about filter, and that's why I made a course on teachexcel.com. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. Look to the description of this video and there should be a link to the course there. I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.